How did you find out your partner was cheating on you? She became more and more distant. Not just that, but also indifferent. She just stopped caring, and it showed. I caught her because she claimed she was working out, but her pay never reflected it. One day I got out of work early after a machine broke down in the department. I didn't tell her. When I came home, I caught her red-handed with someone in our bed. When my STD test came back, and the doctor said, verbatim, "Well, your girlfriend is lying to you." I had a feeling for a while. It was always denied, of course, directly and through a massive amount of gaslighting. Ultimately, the other woman was also married, and her husband called me at work, found me via LinkedIn, took everything I had to walk to my car, to cry in private. She didn't hide it very well. I caught her at a bar the first time, immediately began sleeping in separate rooms. Then during a cancer scare for me, she said she was going to a friend's house. I did the old *69 on the phone, and a dude answered the phone. She asked for separation on a Wednesday, called on a Friday, to ask for her stuff. I said sure, I need you to sign some papers, divorce papers. The other woman knocked on my front door and asked me to take my kid and get out so that the two of them could be together and be happy. I told her she could have him, but they'd have to go because technically I owned the house. I then told him he was free to go. He did not go. Sadly, she'd been dropped off by her ex who she'd cheated on with my ex-husband. That was quite awkward. She accused me of cheating out of the blue, made me jump through crazy hoops to prove myself, but believed me, everything settled. 6 months later she did it again. It took 2 more of these to see the cycle. Simple sleuthery led to the admitted truth that every time I was accused, she was the one cheating. Projection is a real psychological phenomenon. If they start getting suspicious, you'd better start getting suspicious. It's weird that the mind works that way, but it does. My explanation is that for people who are newly starting to cheat, they see how easy it is to get away with, and they start wondering about if they're the ones getting cheated on. That plus an underlying sense of guilt or desire to redirect suspicion/gaslight. As a sports writer for a daily newspaper, I was assigned to cover high school football games across the region. I happened to be working a game in my hometown one Friday night. My then wife took her turn as a band booster mom working the concession stand at that same game. Because my schedule was so random, she had no clue I was there that night, sitting in the press box keeping stats for my story. I used binoculars to better see the game. I spotted my wife in the visitor side concession stand. Standing next to her was a local cop. When I saw them kiss, I knew. We eventually divorced. The cop divorced his wife of more than 30 years in order to marry my ex. They were married about a year, then divorced. I've remarried and will celebrate my 9th wedding anniversary in May. Found single bottle cap on the stairs. I didn't drop it there. I don't drink upstairs, and I hadn't had a drink all week. I xed the crap out of that little piece of evidence. She was supposed to be on a business trip but had been home while I was at work. Since so many asked, she was supposed to coming back from her business trip and stopping at her parents' house to spend most of the weekend. I wasn't expecting her until Sunday at the earliest, but I found the cap Friday afternoon. I called her and didn't get an answer, which wasn't unusual. She often had signal problems out in the middle of nowhere where this plant she had to visit was, so I thought I would maybe check in with her mom, just in case. Her mom was initially confused and then started to waffle, not knowing how best to cover for her own daughter. I got off the phone and a couple minutes my wife finally called. I point blank asked her who she was with, and it was all downhill from there. They must have actually stopped at the house to pack for a little weekend getaway. Who knows what they did there while I was at work, but they had a couple beers to get the weekend started early. I was gone for a military school for 3 weeks. I came back and hung out with our neighbors, and turns out she had intimate time with a guy in their house when they had a little get together. Worst part for me was that the neighbors told me they noticed her and the guy were gone for an extended period of time while they were watching our then 4-year-old son. I found out about 5 hours before her scheduled flight to Alaska, where the military was sending me. I had about a week between the school and the move where we all hung out like nothing happened. That psychopath actually introduced me to him, and I shook his hand. Obviously before they told me, I still cringe to this day. Therapy is necessary. Wasn't married, but GF of 2 years invited me to grab coffee with her on my way home from work. When I arrived at the coffee shop, she was sitting with a guy. We chatted for a bit. I wrongfully assumed he was an old friend / work colleague, and they had run into each other. It felt a little awkward, but I didn't have time to dwell on it at the time, because I had crap to take care of at home. Apparently they were making plans to listen to records. At the time I didn't realize through context that they meant alone. We had several friends who were music nerds and who had large record collections. He would be the first of an unknown number of guys she would cheat on me within a very short period of time. I still can't get past the brazen insanity of inviting us both to meet her for coffee at the same time. There were some underlying manic / depressive and self-destructive issues, but that one still gets me. I was early picking him up from work and saw the other woman dropping him off. They made out for a minute before he ran inside. He came out a few minutes later, having changed into his work shirt, and immediately started complaining about his coworkers. Similar thing happened with my mum and dad too. He suspected something was up, so turned up early to a night class she was taking. As he was waiting outside, he saw a car go past and someone in the front seat ducked for cover. There was nowhere really for the car to go, so he had to watch her get out of the other guy's car and make her way to his. She got in and just said, "So you caught me then?" He left his phone open to someone named Blocked texting him about her weird sunburn from her swimsuit straps. Funny thing is, I wouldn't have given it a second thought if the contact name and the phone was anything normal. So and so from work, whatever, not a second thought, but titling a contact blocked who clearly isn't blocked, since they're messaging you, is just a big red flag. This was 7 or so years ago now. He was in the military, so we were long distance. The woman he was cheating on me with for like 6 months Facebook messaged me one day telling me everything. Not because she suddenly felt guilty, but because she was pissed he cheated on her and gave her chlamydia. They ended up getting back together, got married, and had a kid like a year later. But shockingly that didn't work out and now they're divorced. The dude she cheated on me with had no idea I even existed, and I was out of town visiting my dad in Boston. He sent me a message on Facebook telling me he's sorry, but he had no idea I existed, and he was drunk that night. He woke up before her and used the bathroom and saw my shaving kit. She said it was her roommate's, but it was a 1-bedroom apartment. He did some snooping and found out she was dating me. Real bro move. I had no anger towards him, actually the opposite. He even invited me to have some drinks and he'd pay. I respectfully declined. Luckily we only had 6 weeks left on our lease. The most painful and awkward 6 weeks of my life. She threw away a 3-year relationship because she didn't want to go to Boston, but was mad that I still wanted to go without her. Now I'm happily married to a non-toxic and wonderful woman, and that experience taught me a lot and allowed me to dodge a bullet. Broke up with this guy because I just wasn't in love anymore. A few weeks later, I was still a moping mess because of how guilty I felt. He did everything to make me feel guilty, too, and a mutual friend hated seeing me like this, so he told me the guy had cheated on me a few times with a close friend of mine a few months ago. Turns out a lot of my friends had known for months without telling me. I had a gut feeling. He was in nursing school and would routinely have classmates over to study. There was a younger girl, and I got a weird feeling about her. I got out of work early one day and found her in my home, where my young children were. They were on the couch not doing anything, but I knew. He made up some bullshit story as to why she was there. He said the alarm at his parents' house was going off, and he called her to come babysit. A few days later, I asked if he could meet up near where he was studying to just grab a quick coffee so we could catch up. He declined. A few days after that, he was home and showering. Phone went off, and he never locked it. I decided to look at his phone and there was a text from his friend, Andy, who is male. At first I was like, oh, I'm just paranoid maybe, but I read the message and it definitely wasn't from his friend Andy. It was the girl from school, and the message clearly showed me he was cheating. He came downstairs, and I simply said we should separate and start the process for divorce. He said okay, they are married now. I'm in a good relationship. All worked out in the end. Never ever ignore your gut instinct. We were watching a movie at his house when I got a phone call from his roommate's girlfriend. She sounded upset and asked me to step outside so she could speak with me privately. I didn't think to ask how she knew I was currently with my boyfriend. I went out to the front yard and she told me about how she and my boyfriend's roommate, her boyfriend, were led to believe that we had an open relationship. He was bringing girls home constantly whenever I was gone. Sometimes the same girls repeatedly. She and her boyfriend / the roommate had only just realized that I had no idea what was going on. They felt awful and they made a plan to tell me. I was a little numb when she told me this. It was hard to believe I could be so oblivious. There were a lot of nights I was working late studying. I was in college, and a lot of nights he said he had to work late, and I never questioned him. When I went back inside, my boyfriend wasn't there. I found him in his roommate's bedroom. Roommate had come out while I was on the phone and told him who I was talking to and why. He was sitting on the floor and couldn't even look at me. I tried to talk to him about what he'd done and for how long. Roommate tried to help facilitate. Good guy, but boyfriend couldn't even look at me. Kept repeating how awful he was. It got annoying. So after a little while I thanked roommate profusely and left the room. A friend picked me up. I maintained my composure as I went to gather my things, exit the house, and get in the car. Then I put my head between my knees and sobbed. Broke up with him right after that. Had a weird week of him trying to get back into my good graces and me almost letting him. But I had realized how immature and stagnant of a person he was. He stalked me for a little bit in my own room and threatened the cops if he ever came on our property again. He was in his mid-20s and I was 19 when we started dating, and I didn't realize how much of a red flag that was. Glad I wasted only a year of my life on that botto. I look back and cringe. But I was young and still figuring things out. I still hope his roommate and the girlfriend and doing well. Oh man, this one cuts deep. Currently happily married, but dated a girl a few years in college grad school. It was a long distance thing, but we were madly in love through most of it. One day she randomly started telling me about this really cool guy she met. A lot of similar interests. Really funny. I was genuinely happy for her because she used to complain about how she wanted me to be more ethnic. She started uploading pics to social media and he was constantly in them. And with her, I wanted to be a supportive BF. Hell, we were talking marriage and wanted to show her I trusted her. So I didn't really complain about all the time they were chilling together. In a group setting, mind you, not alone. I remember we had gotten into an argument about something totally unrelated. We hung up the phone that night upset. The next day she called me and wanted to talk some more about it. Cooler heads prevail, right? We had a lengthy discussion. We both were kinda dug in. But then she told me she spoke to him about it and he agreed with her. I got mad, but I kept it to myself. I have a problem where I don't open up about my feelings. Whatever, agree to disagree. Let's move on to something else. I noticed a trend. We were arguing more, and he would always side with her. In my head I thought this dude was being an absolute snake, but to her I would just constantly agree to disagree, or blindly apologize for making her feel bad. End of the semester, and she was going back home for the summer, and so was he. She called me and told me how much she was going to miss him, etc., and I just couldn't take it anymore. That problem I have about not sharing my feelings. It also comes with the quarterly eruption of emotion. I just straight up asked her if she has done anything more than friends with him. She stumbled over her words and I pressed, and she told me she kissed him. I was pissed, but I pressed further and sure enough she told me she slept with him. I immediately hung up the phone, threw it against the wall. It was a flip phone, so the battery fell it, but the bastard didn't break. She called back over and over. We started communicating through text, but that was it. The love of my life, or so I thought, found someone else. She ended up dating him for a few months, but he ended up going to another school closer to his hometown and didn't keep the relationship going.